What is the most bizarre thing you've caught yourself doing after your brain's autopilot misfired? Was in Skype meeting with business partner on other side of country. Poured her a cup of tea. I'm beaming you the tea, Emma. I was at a train station, had just bought a pack of gum. I opened the pack, took out a piece and just threw it in the trash. Didn't even unwrap or anything. A random person asked me why I did it and me, being the master of excuses I am, I told him it was for good luck. Smooth. I like it. Shampoo hair, conditioner hair, liquid soap hair. Frick. I did the same except I put face wash in my hair. It had exfoliating beads in it. Couldn't get it all out and had weird blue dandruff for the rest of the day. I got in the car, began to put my seatbelt on, and somehow ended up trying to put the seatbelt in the ignition. I was distracted because I was talking to my friend, and a solid few seconds of her staring at me as I struggled past before I realized what on earth I was doing. Almost 2 years later she still hasn't let me live it down. I got a new car. Old car's gear shift was floor mounted. New car's was mounted to the steering column. Was on a second date. I was driving to the restaurant. Went to put my car in gear. Casually reached over and shifted my date's knee. There was not a third date. I got a drop of ketchup on my hand, and instead of wiping it off I rubbed it in like lotion. My dad saw me do it and gave me a weird look. Hindsight 0/20. I once drove halfway to work before realizing that I should have dropped my kids off at my middle house, which is in the opposite direction. I asked them why they didn't tell me. They said they didn't want to interrupt. I was in the movies once and I had to pee really bad, but didn't want to go to the bathroom because the movie was at a really good part. While I mentally debated whether or not I could wait, the following thought entered my mind: just pee your pants. Everyone else does it. Just as I was about to relax and let it happen, something in my mind said, whoa, everyone does not pee their pants in movie theaters. At that point, I had no choice but to sprint to the bathroom because the launch code had been activated. Launch sequence activated. Pee commencing in. Got up at 5 AM on Monday morning and took the usual 2 hours bus train commute to work. Essentially woke up outside the office building when a colleague stopped me to have a chat. I had left that job the previous Friday. I quickly made up a story about having to sign and collect some paperwork from HR, so they took me through security. Luckily they worked on a different floor from HR, so exited the building, got some breakfast, went to the cinema, and spent the rest of the day wandering the city like a tourist. Great day, but still felt like a dumbass. Scanned the customer's grocery item, threw it in the garbage can, and waited for him to pay. He was supposed to pay for the privilege of you throwing his crap out. Today when I filling up the watering can to water the plants in the house, I went to the bathroom and started to water the toilet. Edit. I mean I was emptying the watering can into the toilet. I mean that in the most literal sense possible. I went from the kitchen sink to bathroom toilet with the watering can and emptied it in the toilet. Smiled and nodded good morning to a desk lamp. MISO submits this morning's autopilot error. Here's coffee machine beep that it is done. Pulls out mug from cabinet. Fills mug with creamer. Sits down in recliner. Sips creamer without coffee. Similar one. Go to make tea. Pour hot water and sugar in the cup, then look for the tea bag. There never was a tea bag. Gently rocking the stroller in the aisle of the store, over and over, while my husband was holding the kid in his arms. I ran into one of my friends at a grocery store. My husband had our 3-month-old. I had just got myself a big bag of oats from the bins. I realized a couple minutes in the conversation that I was cradling the bag of oats in my arms while swaying back and forth. The number of times I've put things that are never meant to be placed into a refrigerator is astonishing and frankly shameful. Making breakfast. Cracking eggs into trash instead of pan. Most heartbreaking. Spend hours making beautiful stock. Set up the strainer. Pour stock straight down the drain. I've been looking for my phone, using the flashlight on my phone, more than once. Did something similar the other day. Turned the flashlight on my phone on to look for my charging cable. Followed the cable to the end of my phone where it was plugged in. Toothpaste on my razor. I hope you noticed in time. Putting coffee in the fridge in work. Closing the fridge. Opening the fridge to make coffee and thinking who the frick put coffee in the fridge. Looking down at my cup and realizing I had already just made coffee, so it must have been me. I put my debit card in the reader as the clerk started to ring me up. A moment later I go to look for my debit card, but it's not in my wallet. I told the dude sorry, I left my card at home. Started to walk away when he calls me back and points at the card reader. One time I was in the shower super hungover. I nearly had a heart attack when the lights went out for a split second and the room got pitch black. That's when I realized I had just blinked. I once scared myself so bad I literally broke down my glass shower door running away from my hand. Hungover and half asleep, I absent-mindedly scratched my back. My brain decided that the unexpected sensation was clearly another person in the shower with me scratching my back. So much pain. Trying to let the dogs out, but ending up letting them in since they were apparently already outside. I'm a little absent-minded. IT was you wasn't IT. I pressed Ctrl+C on a phone number and then went to the landline phone with absolute confidence. Needless to say, I couldn't find the paste button on it. I once did the finger motion for Ctrl+F while reading a book. Tried to say, frick yeah, I'm out, but instead said check yeah, frick out. It is now a mantra among co-workers. I remember, many years ago, going to a friend's Halloween party in high school. It was an overnight party and most of us were finally giving up and finding spots to sleep. A last couple folks were still having a good time and were rather loud, and in my tired state I ended up telling them to frick the shut up. It took a while to live that one down. Couldn't find my phone, so I tried to call it. It kept going to VM. Hey, it's me, yourself. Call us back. Super tired and trying to make coffee. First turned on the kettle without putting water in it. Luckily caught myself about 3 seconds in so I didn't ruin it. Then poured the grounds into the kettle and not the filter. Lastly poured the boiling water into the filter holder over the sink as usual, but forgot to put the holder on a mug. My mom found me laying on the floor of the kitchen having an existential crisis and made it for me. While pregnant I complained for a week that there was something defective about my decaf coffee because dregs kept ending up in the coffee pot. My husband decided he was going to fix the coffee machine. After looking into it for about a minute he said it might help if you used a coffee filter. I felt like a dumbass. I was eating a burger which had guacamole on it in the foyer of a cinema, talking to some friends waiting to go in. Some guacamole dropped onto the carpeted floor and I bent down to pick it up and put it in the bin. Misfire occurs. Instead I put my finger in my mouth and ate floor guac. The look on their faces triggered the realization of what I had done. We were all mortified. Freaking delicious. Once I dreamt I was peeing, only to wake up and find myself pee into the dirty laundry. Better than the clean laundry. Toasted a half a bagel, put jam on it thinking it was cream cheese, realized my mistake, washed the jam off the bagel, in the sink, then realized what I just did. Jam and cream cheese though. Pouring milk in the cereal container instead of into my bowl of cereal. That's just called not having to make multiple bowls. Twice in the last week I have showered, dried my hair and realized it was ultra greasy since I never used the shampoo. Just looked at the bottle of shampoo while I was in the shower. I do this and similar things, like looking ahead in traffic at the next light and thinking you're at that light instead of the one you're actually crossing. I have run a few red lights due to over planning. I have an iPad for school, but for some classes, like French, I need a normal workbook. I was in class, bored, just doing the exercises, but then I tried to literally zoom in on my real paper workbook by making the zooming motion with my fingers on the paper. Happened twice. Have done this more than once with magazines, etc. Doesn't help that I have poor eyesight and rely on pinch and zoom more than average user. This past summer, my father was witness to this in the office and burst up laughing. I'm grad school studying for finals. I had a jar of peanuts in my office. I poured some nuts into my hand and ate them. Then I grabbed my water and poured it into my hand to eat some. Hi grad school, I'm dad. This happened to me also. After confidently wishing my father happy new year, it was his birthday, I proceeded to put the cake slice in a glass while locking eyes with him. Go to assert dominance somehow. Trying to turn off the light in a dark room or trying to turn the light on in a clearly lit room. Opened a can of wet cat food. Used a fork to scoop cat food into bowl. Licked off fork. I've had the fork at my lips more times than I care to admit. Luckily I haven't had the pleasure of knowing if the wet food really is shrimply divine just yet. Today I put my socks in the trash can instead of in the washing machine. I promptly took them out and placed them in the dishwasher. Washing machine, dishwasher, close enough. I put a calculator in the fridge and spent 15 minutes looking for it. Nearly pee in a low sink. It was a seldom used small bathroom at work. I would stop by when I was in that area of the building to wash my hands and would always check myself in the mirror. The urinal is right beside the sink. Well, one time I needed to take a whiz, so I walked in, unzipped my pants and put my dong and balls on the lip of the sink while looking at myself in the mirror. The cold porcelain on my balls woke me from my brain fart. I dropped a glass in the kitchen and my brain immediately thought, Control Z. I made tea without the tea bag once. Nearly made it without a cup another time. Blame this one on not being caffeinated. Went to grind some coffee beans before feeding my cats. Noticed I poured cat food in the bean grinder. This morning I was watching a crap horror movie called The Pyramid, which is Jay from The In-Betweeners in. I got up to make tea and turned around to my boyfriend to ask if he wanted one, but momentarily expected him to be Jay from The In-Betweeners and was shocked that it wasn't. Oh frick off you fat W. As most males are undoubtedly aware, men's restrooms usually have a fairly standard design. There's a row of sinks, followed by a row of urinals, and then finally a handful of stalls. The accepted etiquette for the men's room is nigh universal, but for those who might not be aware of it, and there seem to be a fair number of you, it can be described as such. 1. Enter the restroom. 2. If there is a urinal available and the ones next to it are not in use, approach and do your business. 3. If there is a urinal available and the ones next to it are in use, find another urinal. 4. If no other urinals are available, save 4 ones with adjacent users, approach, stare straight ahead, and finish as quickly as possible. 5. If there are no urinals available, use a stall. Be sure to close and lock the door. 6. If there are no urinals or stalls available, stand behind a urinal, keeping as much distance between you and the current occupant as possible, and pretend to be very interested in either the floor or the ceiling. These rules are in place for the specific purpose of minimizing embarrassment, and they work well if everyone follows them. Unfortunately, while in a caffeine-deprived haze, I managed to accidentally exploit an unfortunate loophole. I had walked into the restroom, intent on, well, you can guess, and discovered that none of the urinals were available. Fortunately, one of the stall doors was ajar, indicating that it was unoccupied, or so I thought. Upon entering the stall in question, I discovered that it was already in use by someone who had neglected to close the door, and who was midway through their expulsion of fluids. Had I been in a sounder state of mind, I would have hurriedly exited and waited for a different section of the facility to become available. As it happened, I decided that the best course of action was to lounge against the wall, still inside of the stall, mind you, and twiddle with my phone until the guy finished his performance. It was only as he was nearing completion that I realized what I was doing, and I rushed to exit the stall before my unwitting co-occupant noticed my presence. Of course, that was right when someone else entered the restroom. They saw me leave the stall, assumed that it was empty, and walked forward, right into the original occupant, who was making his own exit. I decided to hold it in for a while after that. TLDR, there's a party in the men's room, but no one was invited. So I'm getting ready for work, get my clothes, get my shoes, put on socks and shoes and shirt, go to door with bag. Start patting pockets for keys. Can't find keys. Also can't find pocket. Pants were on bed. I was fully dressed except for my pants. Trying to turn down the TV volume with my phone. You need that app that makes your phone into a universal remote. Oh, I have a couple. I put my hairbrush in the freezer once. Washed my face with my glasses on. Put my socks on my hands instead of my feet. Oh, and I once put nothing in the microwave and broke it. It had a funny smell after. I just laugh at myself most days for doing things like this, but once in a while I give myself a good talking to. Once I went to work wearing 2 different sneakers. I couldn't believe I did that, but I thought I was running late. That was a confusing morning. My co-worker came to work with his cordless phone thinking it was his cell phone. That was a good laugh. After our last baby, I did the same thing with the baby monitor. Put it on my desk so I wouldn't forget it at work. Had 3 questions that day, asking where I found a monitor with such great range, was it Wi-Fi etc. You have been visited by the wealth rat. Subscribe in 12 seconds and he will share his wealth with you. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.